Hey guys, welcome to another Tales from the Block. I know it's been a while since we've done one of these videos. It's been about 4 months now since we've done one of these videos, and I've been wanting to do another one, but just stuff happens. And so if you don't know, if you're not familiar with what this little series is all about, I'm a former Blockbuster video employee. I was there from like the middle 2000s to early to middle 2000s to around 2013, 2012, something like that is when I stopped working at Blockbuster. And I've got a lot of stories to tell about my time as a Blockbuster video employee. I was also a manager there too, as well. So that was always fun when you're a manager at a video store. Raven's with me because she's going to ask me a few questions about my time there at Blockbuster. Only going to ask me a couple questions because we're going to make these kind of short because I can go on and on and on. As she knows, I've gone on and on about Blockbuster throughout the years. But what did you want to ask me about today?
I was just thinking, I mean, you were there for so long and you had so many regulars because, it was a
Yeah.
neighborhood blockbuster,
Yes.
especially when you
Yes.
lived in the smaller town.
Yes.
Were there any customers that like particularly stood out, or do you have any like not so great or strange memories of customers?
Huh, yeah, absolutely. I do. I have a lot of those. That's a good question. So I had a lot of good customers. I'd like to think that I had more good customers than I had bad or weird, I guess.
Sure.
There was always the guy. There was a guy who when I worked at the Greenfield, Indiana store, by the way, if you want to know, right there off of State Road 9. And Greenfield, as Raven said, it's kind of a small town, but it's not like a podunk town, but it's a medium sized suburb. And we always had a guy that came in. I think I told you about this guy who swore up and down how much he hated Blockbuster.
Oh yeah.
He hated Blockbuster. And you guys know Redbox, right? Redbox kind of started, and they were like everywhere. They were at McDonald's and they were at like Kroger and Meijer, Walmart. I mean, oddly enough, they're still around. I don't understand how in the hell
They are, I know.
they are still around after all this time.
Except the
But
one at Walmart is now blue.
oh yeah, some of them. But this guy was always frustrated about something, and I think it was preferably the fact that we had late fees. Although there was a time when we didn't have late fees, which we'll talk about that in a future episode because I got a lot to say about that. But he would always come in and was mad about something, and so every time he left, he was like, "Well, screw you guys. I'm never coming back. Redbox is going to put you guys out of business," which, oddly enough, it wasn't even really Redbox that put us out of business.
Right.
We did go out of business, which we're going to talk about at some point. But he always said he was never coming back, but he always came back. And when he came back, he did not like talking to the last employee that he said he wasn't going to come back to.
Of course.
So he had to take care, like he had to have somebody else check him out. And it's like he would casually walk around the videos on the floor, which were all the like rewards videos or the favorites. They call them the Blockbuster favorites, were all the genre videos on the floor. And the new release wall was, all on the wall, of course. And he would kind of purposely like wait. Like if I was the last person that he told I'm never coming back here again to, and he saw that I was up there checking out customers, he purposely waited until we had a long enough line to where I needed another person to come up, and then he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go out there, and I can't face the fact that I told this person I was never coming back here again, and I'm here." And sad to say, like it didn't matter. Like you were already in our store. Why did it matter? There was that guy. We had a lot of good customers too. I think for me it was the fact that we had the one thing I liked about our customers was, like learning about the movies they liked.
Oh,
right?
Sure.
And, working at a video store, of course, you're going to be talking about movies a lot, if not all the time. And so, it's kind of interesting to see the kinds of people, and I'm not like trying to like judge people by like their ethnicity and things like that, but it was interesting to see what kinds of people liked what kinds of movies. Mm-hmm. You gotta put it like that, like a demographic, if you will.
Yeah.
And a lot of people I think liked horror movies. I think that was always the general consensus. Horror movies were always like a good thing. A lot of people liked horror movies, comedies, of course. things
Now,
like
did
that.
you notice that more people liked horror movies when you lived in Greenfield than when you worked in Greenfield than when you worked at Indy?
That's a good question.
I'm just kind of like, because
I
it was
don't.
a smaller town. I mean, me being a little more familiar with Greenfield,
Sure,
all the cornfields and
sure, yeah. Oh, I see what you're
middle
saying.
of nowhere stuff.
I mean, I didn't really notice any specific like differences in which city liked which type of movies the
Yeah,
most. I don't think
it
that
was
was
more
even a
like the
thing,
people. Yeah.
but it was really the people, and of course, working in retail, and I know you've worked in retail
Oh
outside of
God, yeah.
retail. You have your same clients, I guess I like to call them your
Yeah, your
regulars,
regulars.
and so you kind of already have an idea of like, oh, I know Matt's gonna rent horror movies because he's a horror movie guy, and so a lot of times like, uh, you knew the fun part was is if you had a question about a genre as the employee, you knew which customer to ask.
Oh,
So
that's
so
interesting.
like there was a guy legit named Matt, and he was a big horror guy, and so I knew that if I had a question or if I was going to ask, hey, what do you recommend for a horror movie that I might not have seen, I would wait until he came in because I knew that I was going to get probably the best answer. No offense to anybody else,
That's interesting.
but
Yeah.
you had people that just kind of had their things they were into, and some people never rented dramas, some people never rented comedies. It was weird. Some people never rented horror movies, and there were times when I would ask them, be like, "How come you never rent horror movies? What's wrong with horror?" I'd just joke with them and
Yeah.
stuff. But I like to think that all the conversations I had with people were pretty positive. When it comes to movies. Of course, there was a few weird people that came in, like, um, I don't know. This guy may have had a mental illness, and I don't like to really like rag on people like that. But there was a guy who we don't know if he had a split personality or not. I know I told you about this guy.
Yeah, this is the one I was thinking
He
of. Yeah.
had two different names, said that it was his brother, but I swear to God, they looked exactly the same.
I think they were two different people.
But the guy, the one, I think his name was Charles, was the slightly odd one, we'll put it that way, was always thinking that like the CIA or the FBI was coming after him. And this is when I worked in Indy, East Washington Street, by the way, represent. That's where I'm from. And well, that's where we're both kind of from, the same
Yeah.
area. But this dude, he told me one time that his dog passed away, and he said it was because the Men in Black. I'm not kidding.
You didn't tell me
Like,
this.
they said that the Men in Black hid a thing on his collar and shocked his dog and caused it to pass away. Um, so yeah.
You mean he had a
Um,
shock collar?
well, I wasn't gonna really say that, but he claims that the Men in Black were coming after him. They caused his dog to die.
Thanks.
That was weird, and none of us knew if this guy was like pranking us or if he was like if he actually had multiple personalities. Or which, by the way, if you have that, that's it's got to be hard to deal with.
Sure.
But I'm not trying to make fun of this person by any means, but
No,
it
but it was a
was
different
it
time
was
back then
odd.
too, and you
It
were a
was
different age.
it was odd. I was a
Yeah.
lot younger.
Yeah, that's what I
Okay,
was like.
so it was kind of weird.
Mhm.
And then of course we had customers. I'm pretty sure I mentioned this on a previous episode. We had customers try to steal from us, and they were very blatant about it. And it was like, really, bro, like, are you really wearing a coat in the middle of July? Like, come on, man. Like you just had people that were up to no good. And
Yeah.
I remember what used to make me mad though when I lived in the Greenfield store. I don't know why it was this store you're talking about, like what things happened at a particular
Sure.
store more. I will say that I don't know what it is about that store, or maybe I'm not like judging the people of the town of Greenfield. I love that town, by the way. But the people there with their kids, they let their kids just destroy our store. Like I remember there was one time, I think the new Twilight movie had came out or something, and it was on the new release wall. I think it was Breaking Dawn or something like that. And that's the last one, right? That was the last one, right?
Yeah, part 1 and 2.
Yeah. So we had it on the new release wall, and of course we had it under Twilight, not Breaking Dawn, because it's the Twilight saga,
franchise. Yeah.
right? So we had it over in the T's, which was like the A's usually started. It went left to right, so like you had your A's on the left side, and you go all the way around, Z. So of course T would be like kind of like in a corner, kind of. So I remember checking out some customers, and the next thing I heard was just this giant crash, like this giant crash, and it sounded like just a ton of something falling to the floor. There was a woman there with like her children, and she had to have like two or three, and they were running around, and I was already upset about it. But see, what sucks is like when you're working retail, a lot of my fellow retail people will know. Sometimes you're working by yourself, and it sucks when you work by yourself because you don't really have full control of everything, and you're just kind of you can't have somebody else do something for you. It's just you, and usually you're not working a whole shift by yourself. Sometimes you're working part of the shift by yourself, but in my experience, I worked whole shifts by myself because I was a manager and I had keys. I didn't. They said I didn't need anybody, but which was like
Yikes.
BS. I did. So anyway, so I had so I walked over. So there was these kids, and the mom said, "I'm sorry," and they left. I'm like, what? Yeah, they said, "I'm sorry. Have a good day," and they left. And I'm thinking, and I didn't even like I had a line of customers, and so like they walked past me because at the Greenfield store, our checkouts were on the left side of the store, and our checkout, our movie check-in was on the right where the drop box was, and you had that little middle part you go in and out with the metal detectors. It was a different looking store totally than what people are used to from a normal Blockbuster. So that's because our Blockbuster was in a standalone building. Almost every Blockbuster was not in the standalone building. Ours was in the standalone building. We had our own building. Interesting. Yeah, we had our own building. Okay. If you want to know what the Blockbuster looked like, if you look up I think it's like Porter's Paint or whatever that store is called. If you look for that building on the map in Greenfield, you'll see the Blockbuster. That was where Blockbuster was at. Anyway, so I had customers, and she's like, "I'm so sorry. Have a good day." And she like said it as she was walking by with her two or three kids, and she left. And so I kid you not, I got my customers taken care of, and I walked back there, and I'm not joking. I don't know how they did it, but every movie that was like top to bottom from the Twilight, Breaking Dawn, on the whole shelf was on the floor. I mean,
so was Breaking Dawn, I'm thinking like, was it at the top and that's what they were trying to get?
No, it was a whole top to bottom shelf of Breaking Dawn. I don't know what they did or how they did it or how they knocked them over because it was up against the wall.
Like, okay, did the kid jump up trying to get the movie?
I don't know. But all I know is when I got back there was like a mountain. Not a little mountain, but like a pile of all this Twilight on the ground. And I was so mad. I was so upset.
How long did it take you to put that back together?
Man,
how many movies would you think it?
Oh, it was easily like 200 movies.
Oh my god!
I'm not even kidding. We had a lot of copies of that movie.
I was thinking like 50.
Like the display, like so on the new release wall,
the same movie.
It was two whole shelves full of Breaking Dawn. So they didn't knock over both shelves; they knocked over just the one side. And so yeah, I had to go pick them all up. Thankfully, it was just one movie, so I didn't have to sort them. Because you imagine how mad I'd have been.
That's what I was thinking.
Could you imagine how mad I would have been if I had to have sorted all those movies and put them back by alphabet?
I was wondering.
So thankfully, the saving grace was it was only just like Breaking Dawn, and it wasn't like I had to go and like categorize all the Twilight movies within Twilight, Mm-hmm. So thankfully, I just had to pick them up and put them back on the shelf because they didn't have to go in a certain order. But I was like, man, this is so BS. Like I
hadn't heard that story.
I was so mad. Yeah, you've not heard that one.
So I'm sure there's so many I haven't heard.
But that happened off and on at that store. I don't know what it was, but that was the worst one. Or you'd have kids like knock over like confection, like stuff off the confection, and or kids would take candy to their parents to go buy. And so their parents would say no, and so the kid would like just throw it on the shelves. So, like we're running movies, I'd find like boxes of Dots and Sour Patch Kids and things like that.
Easy, but
so still. It was funny, but like that's not as bad as like having children just like topple like cause a whole thing full of movies to fall on the floor and just leave it there. You left it there. Come on, parent. You could have helped.
At that point, though, she probably thought, I'm going to get my kids out of here.
Right. So, like...
before I kill them.
So, like, it's just... it's just bad that, you know, uh, they a lot of these parents, when their children would make messes, they never clean them up. By the way, at the Greenfield store, at the Greenfield store. So I don't know what it was about the Greenfield store, but these parents didn't clean up their kids' messes. They did it at the indie store, but I don't know what
That's
it
interesting.
was about that. But I mean, outside of that, I mean, I never really had a whole lot of bad cut. Like, I mean, I had people call me names. I mean, typical retail stuff
Yeah.
that you would expect, like getting cussed out or called a name, or
Mm-hmm.
nothing really, nothing really too wild.
Did we have that stuff at Target of all places?
Oh, you did?
Not
Oh, I
very
believe that. I
often.
used to work there too.
Yeah.
I worked at Target too.
Yeah.
I worked a lot of retail. Did you have any other questions you want to ask me?
Yeah, not customer related, but
Okay.
we were talking. You mentioned earlier about Blockbuster going out of business, and I thought,
Yeah, that happened.
you being a manager at the time,
Yes.
it was different. Of course, being on our customer side of
Sure.
it and seeing it going out of business.
Yes. Yes.
But you worked there for so long before.
Yes.
Did you notice anything? Like that kind of were like red flags, or that you noticed that
Oh boy.
were like stepping stones or things that led up to Blockbuster closing?
Oh my God, yeah, there was a lot of signs. The biggest tell was when Blockbuster was trying too hard to make money.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel
In
like
what ways?
I feel like well, I'll tell you in a second. I feel like when a store is trying too hard to make money, that's when you know something's wrong because, of course, as well as I know you guys watching this at home, and you especially, Blockbuster is known for being a video rental store. They rent videos. That's what they do. There were times, and I'll give you a little history of the company. There were a few times when Blockbuster deviated from movies, like they did Blockbuster Music. Do you remember Blockbuster Music? When they used to rent out CDs.
I think I remember that for a little bit.
They did this at the East Washington store, by the way.
They didn't do that for very long, did they?
No, I did not work there. They did this in the mid to late 90s is when they did this, when CDs were kind of being more and more popular and things like that. But yeah, they did Blockbuster Music. Let me know in the comments below if you remember Blockbuster Music.
Gosh, I'm trying to
remember. It was kind of like if you when you go to the library, when you go to the library and they've got those like things and kind of shuffle through with CDs.
Sure.
I got a CD
I did that a
too.
lot.
Blockbuster had that same thing, and all you did was it came in it was the actual CD, the jewel case, and you take it out and you go up and rent it. And I think you could rent CDs for like $1 or something like that. Yeah.
Did they have like the plastic?
Oh yeah, they did
around it.
Mm-hmm. They had
like they do at the library, or
yes, they had those, so you can steal them. But
right.
Yeah, they had Blockbuster Music. Yeah, I remember that. You could rent. Also, you probably don't. I bet you definitely don't know this. How many people remember Blockbuster Block Party? Let me know in the comments below if you remember.
Sounds familiar,
Blockbuster Block Party. Blockbuster. That's a mouthful.
Blockbuster
Block Party. Blockbuster Block Party was actually an arcade, and
no, I don't.
They had one in Castleton.
Oh,
I do believe, and it was the only one they had in I think the entire state of Indiana. It was a test market. You can go look it up. I have yet to see.
Remember that at all.
I have yet to see any photos of the inside of one.
Oh.
But I had a friend of mine who I worked with at Walmart who told me all about it. And sure enough, it's a real thing. I did look this up. It's been confirmed. Yes, Blockbuster Block Party was in fact an arcade, and I believe it was an arcade that allowed you to rent movies. So it was like a rental. It was like a movie rental / arcade.
Weird.
And I don't know if you've ever worked in retail, you know that sometimes companies like to do test things. Like I'll give you guys, like GameStop, for instance. I worked there too, and GameStop did this thing where it was like a internet cafe, and they had one, and they had computers and consoles, and you could rent out and play video games on. GameStop did that, by the way, recently. That was a few years ago.
Recently?
Very recently they did this. Yes, yeah. Look it up.
Now, see,
there's videos right here on YouTube of that. Actually,
I believe you. I just feel like that would have been much better back in the late 90s or
right 2000s, yeah, no, for sure. But
internet was really becoming big.
But the things that so Blockbuster is no stranger to trying different things. Of course, an arcade, music, it fits entertainment, because I think Blockbuster at one point was going to go from being called Blockbuster Video to Blockbuster Entertainment, and they wanted to be this like entertainment
Mhm.
They wanted to be this kind of entertainment conglomerate, where our core stores are our
Mhm.
Blockbuster video stores, but then they were also going to do like music stores and arcades, and they wanted to incorporate it all into Blockbuster
Yeah.
Entertainment. So
That makes sense.
that obviously didn't work out, but Blockbuster rented out VHS players. You remember that?
I do remember that.
They rented out VHS players. They also rented out VHS rewinders.
Now I
Remember
remember
those?
Winders more than
They also
anything.
rented out video game consoles. They used to rent out video game consoles. They rented out like Super Nintendos and Nintendo 64. They used to rent out all sorts of
That
game
makes
consoles.
sense.
They had to put down a deposit. Once again,
Yeah.
I didn't work there when they did that. That was actually, they actually had just stopped renting out consoles because of theft. Go
Oh,
figure.
shocker.
So there was like $100 deposit, and the consoles are like worth $400 or $500, so they were losing tons of money. So
That
yeah.
sucks.
But what was it really that really kind of led to
Yeah.
the demise?
I'm
So
sure it wasn't any one big thing.
so it kind of started with TiVo and DirecTV.
Oh.
So for those who don't recall, Blockbuster had a partnership with DirecTV. They actually kind of merged, or I think one bought the other, or something like that. I don't remember the details. The details are kind of fuzzy for me. But at one point, you could go into a Blockbuster video store, and it had a DirecTV little kiosk in there, and it actually had a Blockbuster
I don't
app.
remember any of this.
There was a Blockbuster app, and guess who had to sell those? Me.
Wow.
So I had to not only try to upsell and get people to rent movies and buy confection and the rewards program and all that, but I also had to become a DirecTV seller too. But
Oh my God.
Blockbuster did offer commission. However, not many people bought satellite TV in a Blockbuster store, so
Right,
that didn't
yeah.
work out too well. So they did that for the longest time. They actually did that to the very end. They actually continued to do that to the very end.
I don't remember that at all. That's crazy to me.
I think that started after Blockbuster was no longer owned by Viacom. Which if you don't remember, do you remember the Blockbuster video game championships? That was all.
No.
Blockbuster had a video game championships. We're going to talk about that in later episodes.
We didn't rent from
But they-
Blockbuster very often.
But they had you guys go to Family Video or
Yeah.
Hollywood. Oh, okay.
Yeah, we did.
I did too. It's all right, but
Blockbuster
really,
was
what
more
it was when they started doing Snuggies and just
But Snuggies
weird-
make sense.
but it was just like they were trying to do all kinds of weird stuff, and then they were trying to sell DirecTV. Then they went from they were doing DirecTV, and then they started buying TiVo. Remember TiVo?
Yes, I remember.
It was
TiVo.
literally
Never had
a
it, but I remember it.
box that you just recorded TV with,
Yeah.
right? Before we have all this cool stuff we can do now, we don't need that anymore. Yeah, we tried selling TiVo. Then they wanted to do framed artwork. I remember when they had framed artwork too at Blockbuster. Yes, they had a framed art section.
Okay, Snuggies. You make fun of Snuggies, but that makes way more sense than framed artwork and DirecTV.
Well, the framed artwork was like movie posters, like Star Wars and all that.
Okay, that makes sense.
If
Like,
I'm gonna tell you guys a little secret. I cannot confirm or deny this, but if you ever go to like, I don't know, a Home Goods or a TJ Maxx or a place like Gordman's if those are still around, or we'll do Burlington, and you see those framed artwork that come in the thick black frames. Like I've got one in here
you think
somewhere.
some of them came from Blockbuster?
I swear to God, those are all that they bought from Blockbuster. I am not even kidding. I feel like they bought all those from Blockbuster.
That's crazy to me.
Because Blockbuster did the whole liquidation thing, which we'll talk
Yeah.
about the liquidation. That was fun. That's a whole episode. We'll talk about that.
That's a whole other story.
But it was definitely the fact that Blockbuster. I used to make fun of them because you can see Blockbuster's colors: yellow, white, and blue.
Mhm.
Right? It's the same colors as Best Buy.
Oh yeah.
Except it's black, blue, and yellow there.
Yeah.
But I was like, we're trying too hard to be Best Buy because Blockbuster started doing midnight releases for movies and pre-orders for movies. Which, by the way, it's funny. They started. It's so funny because they started to do those things, and it's like, shouldn't you have been doing those things? You're a video store after all. They had literally just started doing video game pre-orders within the last 3 or 4 years of Blockbuster's life as a store, as a brick and mortar store. Then I think they just tried doing way too much because, of course, what really led to their demise was the fact that they did not purchase Netflix. And I think that just telling Reed Hastings, the CEO of Netflix at the time, no, we're not going to buy you. We're not going to buy you. We don't want to buy you. I think that had a lot to do with their downfall because they basically said, we don't need to do this. And then Netflix at the time was doing, in the mail. And so guess who also decided to do that?
Yeah.
Blockbuster. Which, fun fact, by the way, about Netflix.
I was just going to say.
They just sent out their last DVD in the mail. They
like
are
a couple weeks ago.
no longer doing that. And it's been, what, like 15 years of them doing that for something like that? A long time. And then Blockbuster did this.
Like 20 years or more.
And then Blockbuster did this thing where they wanted to also be like Netflix. So you know how Netflix went from DVDs in the mail, and then they decided to do like streaming. So then guess who also decided to do streaming? Blockbuster, because Blockbuster had an app on DirecTV because they were like, oh, buy DirecTV and then you can stream. Then you can also stream videos like Netflix. But Netflix is like, well, you don't have to buy a DirecTV. You can do this on your phone.
Right.
And so it was, Netflix really had the edge, and it wasn't Redbox. Don't think it. You think that was Redbox that put us out of business? It was not Redbox. It was absolutely Netflix, and it was the fact that our CEO at the time, James Keyes, was stupid, and that was fun too. When I would come to work and I would get all these emails, work emails, and most of them were videos of James Keyes basically assuring us, "Oh no, Blockbuster's not going out of business." Watching him basically like telling us we're not going out of business, trust us, and it's like, yeah, okay, like right.
It's
all the signs are there.
Netflix, or was it Blockbuster failure? Because think about it. I mean, like Family Video literally just closed all of their stores like 3 years ago.
That's true. That's true.
So but it's not that they couldn't have survived. It's just that they weren't innovative enough.
Sure. I think a lot of it had to do with Blockbuster, as I said, tried too hard. They wanted to try to do too many different things. And that came at the cost of them filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And they were at a point where their backs were against the wall, and so they were like, we really got to make money, and so they were trying to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
They were trying to do too many extra things.
Yeah.
And Family Video.
You had mentioned late fees earlier.
Family Video kept it really easy, and they didn't do anything. They remained at their core. And I think if Blockbuster had just stopped trying to do everything. And while I get you don't want tunnel vision, but you also don't want to forget where you came from. And I think what happened with Blockbuster is that they forgot where they came from.
Yeah.
And they forgot that they were really a video rental store. And I think if they had done that and stayed that way, who knows? I don't think they would have stayed around because, let's face it, brick and mortar video stores are kind of just a thing of the past. However, Blockbuster has been back on social media a lot lately on Twitter. So there are some rumors that they might be bringing back a brick and mortar store.
Well, they still have the one, don't they?
They have the one in Bend, Oregon. Yes, but that's a franchise, so
yeah,
they're the ones keeping that operation going. And it's kind of, I think that store is going to always stay open because at this point it's kind of a museum to Blockbuster as well.
So they did have, and I told you about this when it happened. This has been like months ago, I think, but they did have a Blockbuster pop-up out in California, and it was for like 3 weeks or a month long or something like that. And, but they had like cocktails and that were named after movies and everything. It was really cool. It was really cool looking.
And then the Bend, Oregon store was they had it used as an Airbnb. Do you remember that too?
I do.
They were renting out the store.
Yeah.
They said, don't just rent a video, come rent the store. And they had like a couch, like an 80s couch and a Zenith TV and all these video games and stuff you could play. I really wish I could have done that. That would have been really, really cool. But outside of that, I think it had a lot to do with, I know you talked about late fees. The late fees
earlier.
The late fees were a problem, and I'm going to get more into this on our next episode because it's a whole thing.
Gotcha.
Okay. But yes, the late fees, when they did away with late fees, that was a really big. That was the turning point. I think that was the first domino to topple over to cause the other dominoes to fall. Because you have to think about, they made a ton of money in late fees. So when you tell people no more late fees, you're basically telling yourself no more profit. So but that'll be our next episode. We'll talk about the no more late fees thing next episode. Okay. And thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks to my lovely wife for interviewing me. I appreciate it. And guys, let me know your memories of Blockbuster in the comments below. Let us know what you thought of when you rented there. What are some of your fond memories? What are some things you liked? What are some things you didn't like? Do you think Blockbuster could be viable again? Do you think that they could do? Could they bring back brick and mortar stores? Would it be a viable business model for them? Let me know in the comments below. Or even if you didn't rent at Blockbuster, tell me what you loved about renting at a video store. That's even better. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.